I always like to have opposing points of view on the show so that you get to hear from people who disagree with me. For instance, I come on here day after day and I talk to you and I say there's a God and you'll find joy if you live in the spirit rather than the flesh. So to offer a different perspective, I brought on a special guest. Satan, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, old friend.
I'd really like to get your take on some of the events of the day. For instance, there's been this big, uprising of women opposed to Donald Trump. We recently had this women's march. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's a delightful event. Thousands of women wearing pink hats to represent the fact that they had their vaginas where their brains are supposed to be. Vulgar signs, vulgar language, angry, hate-filled speeches. These are my sorts of ladies, Drew. Also, it drew attention away from that pro-life march down the street. They were praying and celebrating their children. I'm on the other side of that question, of course.
You mean you're not pro-life, you're pro-choice?
I'm not pro-life, I'm anti-life. Sin and death, old boy. Nothing I enjoy more than spending a pleasant afternoon watching babies being poisoned in the womb and then ripped to pieces so that their parts can be sold for a tidy profit. Some people enjoy the theater, old boy, but for me, it's Planned Parenthood all the way.
That sounds evil.
Yeah, I'm Satan.
Oh, right, it slipped my mind.
Yeah, but, I'm not at all picky, of course. Whether it's gender reassignment for children or Islamic genital mutilation for little girls, I feel that any time a helpless youngster is mutilated to the service of the misguided philosophy of some adult, well, that's a good day, old boy. Sort of reminds me of the things the Nazi torture doctors used to get up to. The Nazis.
You miss the Nazis?
Miss them? I have them over for gin rummy every Thursday night. They're in hell with me forever.
Right. Of course. I should have thought of that. So all in all, with all the abortion and mutilating children and vulgar women running around, things are going pretty well for you right now.
Well, it's my planet, old chap. You're just living in it.
Is there anything happening on Earth you don't like?
Well, the government seems to be getting a bit smaller. I suppose that worries me some, but Trump can't live forever. Like the old adage says, a man can't live on fried chicken alone.
So I just have one more question. Why is it you have such an erudite kind of upper-class accent?
Simple, my boy. It takes a tremendous amount of intelligence and sophistication to convince oneself and others that evil is good and good is evil. And that's pretty much been my business since day one. Or day 8, depending on how you read the text.
All right, well, I got it. Thanks very much for coming on. Actually, I asked our producer, Rob, to get Santa to come back, but he's dyslexic. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky.
That was great. Good. Look, anything like that.
We also sing hunky-dunky-doo.
Oh, he throws a little bit out here.
Topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right. Speaking of Satan, we've got Michael Knowles coming on to cover the Olympics. He's going to be with us in just a moment to talk about the media's absolute delight and love over North Korea. Just unbelievable stuff. And I'll tell you in a moment why I made him do it, why I made him watch the Olympics instead of me. But first, a couple of weeks ago, we got a new sponsor, Peloton. And I always like to try things out before I recommend them. Obviously, I don't want to sell you something that's no good. So I actually drove down to Century City, which is about, half an hour away from my house. And I drove down there and went and visited the Peloton shop. And I took a look at the bike they have. And what Peloton is it's an exercise bike that you have in your home, but it comes with a screen. And when you buy the bike, you also buy a subscription, so you're getting classes in your home. You don't have to drive to the gym. You're getting spin classes live, or you can watch them, save them, and watch them later, actually in your home. And it's really, first of all, it's a great piece of machinery. It's a spin bike, but it has no, I don't know if I call it that, but it's an exercise bike, but it has belts instead of chains and things, so it makes no sound. It is virtually silent. So you can, if your spouse is asleep, you could do it actually in the bedroom. And then you get these classes, and you don't have to worry about fitting classes into your schedule. You just do it yourself. And it's up to 14 new classes every day with over 8,000 on demand. It's a variety of workouts to choose from, 45-minute classes, 20-minute burns. You got music and rock and roll, and you can put on, they showed me that you can put on sites and cities that you can just bike through. The features, they've got a 22-inch HT touchscreen. It's near silent, like I said. It really is impressive. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've never seen a machine move like that and not make any noise. And it's got a very compact footprint, so you can put it anywhere, fit in your living room and in your office, whatever you want, wherever you want to put it that works for you. And you can discover this cutting-edge indoor cycling bike that brings the studio experience to your home with a special deal from me, right? Peloton is offering listeners a limited time offer. You go to onepeloton.com. Now that's spelled ONE-Peloton-.com. So it's ONE Peloton, PELOTON.com. And then you enter the code Klavan at checkout. And you think, I'm so out of breath, I can't remember how to spell Klavan, but it's KLAVAN. And you get $100 off accessories with your Peloton bike purchase. Get a great workout at home anytime you want. Go to onepeloton.com and use the code Klavan, and you can get started. It is a remarkable machine, and the classes are cool, and they just come right into your home. Anyway, the reason I made Knowles cover the Olympics, I don't watch the Olympics. I cannot stand them. I find them excruciating. And one of the reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is that so many of the events are not sports. To me, a sport is an objective event. It has points somehow. You somehow score points or runs or whatever they call them, and whoever has more of those at the end wins. So right? You hit the ball out of the park, you get a home run, that is a point. It's a run. If you run across the goal run across the line into the across the goal line, you get 6 points. That's a touchdown. There are points. Whoever gets the most points win, or if it's golf, whoever gets the less points, whatever it is. There's not some guy just telling you what it is. Obviously, there are referees. Referees make mistakes, and they're human, and that's part of the game. You have a conversation. But in so many of these things, like figure skating and the ski jumps and freestyle ski jumping, it's just the judges giving points. And for me, the difference between sport and that is the exact same difference between capitalism and socialism. In capitalism, you compete. You compete directly. You try to make something better. And freedom in general. You have to have better ideas. Here's my idea. People should be free. Women should have equal rights. Here's your idea. Women should wear burqas and not get to drive. Let's see which one of those ideas in the field of competition. Let's see which idea wins. I invent a phone that looks like this and has this. You invent one that has this and has this. Which phone is better? It's all competition. But what socialism is, and what the global elites want, is they want a world in which they sit and you have an idea and they just hold up a sign. Yes, we'll give that idea 9.9. No, that idea takes my power and money away. That's just a 5.6. And of course, once you have that system, once it's all based on the judges, once winning and losing are all based on the judges will become corrupt. They may not become corrupt in the first generation, but they will definitely become corrupt in the second generation. So every time I watch this, the Olympics, I just think that's not sports. Some guy holding up a sign. And it's not like I can't watch fun skiing and stuff like that. But it's not a competition. Just show me, and I'll just say that was amazing. So a lot of the news, as far as I'm concerned, has been about the way that the media, Kim Jong-un's sister was there, and it was embarrassing. And Knowles will talk about this, but they just praised Kim Jong-un's sister and the Korean, this synchronized dance team they had. So they're sitting there. This is one of the most corrupt, murderous, oppressive regimes. I mean, these are the guys they murdered. Kim Jong-un had his brother-in-law, I think it was, half-brother, murdered in an airport. They put that cloth over his mouth and it was just like hideous stuff. But people are being sent overseas as slave labor. North Koreans are being sent overseas as slave labor. They're being thrown in prison. They're disappearing. Do we have that picture of North Korea and South Korea from the sky? There it is. You can just see South Korea with freedom. It's all lit up. You can see it. North Korea, you see a little dot. That's the capital. Otherwise, it's black. And they're starving. People are starving. They're crawling out of there any way they can. And so the press is praising them. And so you could just say, well, it's Trump derangement syndrome. You know, Trump says black, they say white. He says up, they say down. He says freedom, they say North Korea. Hooray! You know, that's how nuts they are. But the fact is, the press has been using the Olympics to praise tyranny for a long, long time. Our friends at one of my favorite websites, MRC's Newsbusters, put together a series of coverage from the Olympics, since going back to the 90s. And I had the guys here splice it into a montage. This is the kind of coverage you've been getting from the Olympics and why it's so hard for me to stomach it.
Try not to laugh when someone says these are the world's greatest athletes, despite a paucity of blacks that makes the Winter Games look like a GOP convention.
The revolution that birthed one of modern history's pivotal experiments.
In Korea, Cuba, Vietnam, and space, the U.S. spared little to defeat communism. At times, it seemed like a national obsession.
Stalin promised the metro would be a palace for the people, and so it is. Open architecture, mosaics, even chandeliers.
From designer clothes to new cars, China is getting rich. Democracies once bragged that theirs was the only way to economic success. China is doing it the communist way.
It's fascinating, though, to see how generous the maternity benefits are in this country. And that men can sort of switch roles with their wives and get that 42 weeks paid leave.
Yeah, Paula, you and I have been talking about we want to send our kids, we want to move here and put our kids in school here. The kids are treated so well. I think we have a lot to learn from these folks.
I think you're right.
We want to express our nationalism as a part of the world's community, and I expect to see that.
But we have to also be careful and draw a line not to let our patriotism get in the way of the games in general.
Obviously, the opening ceremony, the games themselves, will be very patriotic in feel. And yet, sometimes the international community can interpret that as arrogant nationalism. Obviously, you've got to balance those two things.
So we don't want too much patriotism from the Americans, but we're going to celebrate Stalin's subway. That's Stalin. He makes a great, he's killed my wife and children, but he makes a great subway. In China, they're getting rich the communist way. I mean, this is something they've been doing for a long time. Back in 1936, Kim Jong-un's philosophical predecessor, a guy named Adolf Hitler, who you may have heard of, he had the Olympics in Germany. Here is the New York Herald Tribune covering that. This is their international edition. In a riot of color and music and ceremonial splendor that could not be dimmed by leaden skies and occasional showers, the 16-day period of the Berlin Olympic Games, celebrating the 11th Olympiad of modern times, was inaugurated today under the patronage of Chancellor Adolf Hitler, leader of the German people, with royalty and nobility and diplomats and commoners and athletes of 50 nations participating in a Germanized festival that overshadowed the sports pageant itself. Homage to Hitler all through the ceremony stood out boldly against the setting of the Olympic opening ritual. Hitler's arrival, signaled by a trumpet solo from the huge towers that formed the marathon gateway to the stadium, was taken up by a 100-piece symphony orchestra, which burst into Deutschland über alles as the entire crowd sang the refrains. There was mild applause when the American team appeared through the marathon gate, but nothing to compare with the ovations to Bulgaria, France, and later Austria. As the Americans were marching past Hitler, the German array appeared on their heels, and the Americans were promptly and completely ignored. Now, I'm not saying that they were supporting Hitler there. I'm just saying that this is like, an emptiness of thought, that it does promote the idea that if we're unpopular, we're wrong. It's entirely possible that we can get the fewest cheers and still be in the right. And speaking of the man who gets the fewest cheers, Michael Knowles is with us. I forced him to watch the Olympics because I just can't bear them. I mean, how were they in general?
Well, I'd like to first thank you for introducing me as the man who got the fewest cheers instead of Satan, as I expected to be introduced, or some lower order demon.
You bear a strange resemblance. I don't know what it is. I don't know why you remind me of Satan, but
it was really awful. Thank you again for this rivaled South Side with you and Barry. It rivaled both of them. I almost wanted to watch them though because of the media coverage.
Yeah.
When we sat down, sweet little Elisa, my fiance, said, Mac, can we not watch any Olympics this year? I said, I'd love to do that, but Drew's going to make me do it. And
so now CNN, she hates me, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
The CNN headline, quote, Kim Jong-un's sister is stealing the show at the Winter Olympics. And this is just the first paragraph.
Yeah.
If diplomatic dance were an event at the Winter Olympics, Kim Jong-un's younger sister would be favored to win gold.
Holy
With a
smokes.
smile, a handshake, and a warm message in South Korea's presidential guest book. By the way, there was no warm message, but that's beside the point. Kim Yo-jong has struck a chord with the public just one day into the Pyeongchang Games. Now, this has been rightly pilloried. Obviously, it should be pilloried. Max Rosenthal of the Washington Post, which where democracy dies in darkness. He tweeted out all of these stories about how her visit played in South Korea, or about how her visit played in South Korea among South Koreans. The pile-on about these pieces is frankly tedious. And this reminds me of like all of Walter Duranty's stories were about how Stalin played to an idiot New York Times reporter. And you know, the moral idiocy is a little tedious too. There's this, oh, come on, get off it. Stop being so American about all of this.
And you know, I always am listening for when news people tell me, A, that the American people feel this, when they start to use phrases like some people are saying. And I thought, like your boss, you mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Or they'll say, you know, they'll speak in the passive voice, questions are being raised. And you think like, by you, basically.
Critics say. Critic. By the way, my name is Critic. My nickname is Critic.
They also were attacking. I mean, Mike Pence and the Kim Jong-un's sister were sitting together, basically, watching some of this?
They were sitting together, and Mike Pence didn't acknowledge her because she's a murderous dictatress.
Oh, you picky.
I know. I'm so ethnocentric, American-centric or something. Here are some, because you're right. This is the big difference in coverage between our milquetoast vice president and this murderous monster. In North Korea, the annual GDP is $1,800 per capita. That ranks 197th in the world, and those are just the official statistics. 125,000 North Koreans are held in concentration camps and tortured. 12 million people in North Korea are starving. They live in extreme poverty where they can't get enough food to survive. The average life expectancy has fallen 5 years since just the 80s, now down to 69, according to the official statistics. This is likely a decade higher than the reality of it.
That's amazing.
But even the Korean government can't pretend that these people live any longer than 69 years. Workers earn $2 to $3 per month. Even figuring in some black market things, it basically cannot rise to more than $10
$2 to $3 a month?
Yeah.
But that will buy you a pomegranate, I guess.
That's right. That will buy you one of the little seeds of the pomegranate. That number, by the way, even including black market, is a third of the government salary in Cuba. That's for comparison. Homes receive a few hours of electricity a day if they have electricity. Most do not. Most do not have plumbing. Parents who send their kids to school need to provide desks, chairs, building materials, and cash to pay for fuel. The trouble is, school isn't school. It's a labor camp. So most parents actually save all that money and bribe the teacher not to make their children go to school so they don't have to be enslaved by the government. North Korea has free universal health care, except patients must pay for their own drugs, the cost of heat, and prepare all of their meals at home. Kim Jong-un, meanwhile, is worth $5 billion, an estimated $5 billion. So that guy, how nice, isn't this so nice? The mainstream media were calling Kim Yo-jong the Korean Ivanka Trump. They're comparing her to Ivanka. You know, she's so glamorous, isn't she?
Very similar. You know, I'm going to interrupt you to do a commercial so that you don't just vanish into thin air. But I will be right back. I want to continue this conversation talking about the DollarShaveClub.com, which I have been a member of since way before they were sponsors. And as you can see, some of us have to do a little more shaving than others. And I really think a lot about my razors. And in fact, this week when I was traveling, I was like, which of my razors should I take? You know, I really have gotten into like a complete obsessive idea about this. And Dollar Shave Club just genuinely helps. Basically, you subscribe, they send you the razors every month, they send you new blades every month, so you're not constantly using those blades that you get from disposable razors and you don't know when to throw them away. You don't have to go to the store and open up and set off the alarm and then get carried off and arrested, put in prison for years until you kindly come back with a big beard and then you don't even know how to shave anymore. Instead, they just send them directly to you and you can put in your box, you know, your cyber box. You can put in shampoo, body wash, toothpaste, all the other things that they have. And they have this kind of shave butter, which I like because you can see through it. It's clear. And you can choose which kind of razors you want. I use both the executive and the basic 2-blade one because sometimes I don't have to shave as much as other times. But when I use that executive thing, I get an incredible shave. All of the blades give you good shaves. You can join Dollar Shave Club today for just $5 with free shipping, and they'll send you their starter set. It has the 6-blade executive razor, so it's only 6. I keep saying it's 152 blades, but it's 6 blades, executive razor plus trial sizes of shave butter, body cleanser, and 1 wipe Charlie's. Then keep the blades coming for a few bucks more a month. Get yours at dollarshaveclub.com/Klavan. That's dollarshaveclub.com/Klavan. And you probably want me to turn around because I've got the word Klavan carved into the back of my head, but I'll just spell it for you. It's Klavan. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Klavan and get started with these $5. I love these blades, so they're really good. Let's go back to this for a minute, Knowles. You're talking about the incredibly crummy economy they have, but there's also, just not to kick a dead horse, beat a dead horse, but there's also the oppression. They have. I was reading who is Amnesty International, which is not exactly a right-wing site. They said that the citizens of the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea continue to suffer violations of most aspects of their human rights. North Koreans and foreign nationals are arbitrarily detained and sentenced after unfair trials for criminal offenses that were not internationally recognized. Severe restrictions on the right to freedom of expression continued. Thousands of North Koreans were sent by the authorities to work abroad, basically as slaves. The government continued to dispatch through state-owned enterprise at least 50,000 people, at least up to 120,000 people remained in detention centers, which as we know from our own guy Warren Beer, are basically killing fields. I mean, this is the guy they're praising. And then their people come on and dance, and they said how great it was.
Hundreds of thousands of North Koreans are tortured daily in concentration camps, to say nothing of the millions and millions who are enslaved. The entire country is enslaved. Yeah. And this guy, this regime, tortured to death an American college student. Now, I want to show you 2 clips.
Okay.
This is how CNN treated Kim Jong-un's sister.
Meantime, with the world watching the Olympics, she will put a young, telegenic face on the regime. This is a calculated move from Kim Jong-un, experts say, to answer Ivanka Trump's presence at the closing ceremonies.
Kim Yo-jong is the perfect counterpart to this. And it also is a signal that North Korea is not, this crazy, weird, former Cold War state, but that it too has young women that are capable and are the future leadership.
Young woman. There's one. And the rest are slaves.
So it's kind of just like Trump's America, right?
Yeah. So that's how CNN treats Kim Jong-un's sister.
Unbelievable.
How does CNN treat our milquetoast Vice President Mike Pence?
Now let's talk about why Rippon doesn't want to meet with the vice president. He's openly gay. He's an advocate as well. He referenced the gay conversion. That goes back to about 2000 when the vice president was a congressman, and he was supporting funding for services for people who want to change their sexual behavior or orientation. What else could that mean but gay conversion therapy?
Chris, that's something, and words are important. I know you feel this way. I of course, do as well, that it certainly sounds like gay conversion therapy, but I asked the press secretary if she could give me the answer of what that was. And that was back on January 17th in our back and forth.
It goes on for about 10 more minutes. It just keeps going, obviously.
Unbelievable. It's like, and as we all know in Indiana, gays have to live in the woods because
this was a...
What's the truth? What is
they find can rip out of context to turn into a television ad. And that's what happened here. So they found one line from one provision from a paragraph about supporting a bill to fund AIDS medicine and AIDS research, and they pulled that out, and that was supposed to be the big scare quote. And look, I don't mind that they did that. That's what politics is. But for journalists to pretend that this is reality...
This is a big problem.
But of course, that isn't the case. It's one line. You could do it with any candidate over any bill. The trouble with voting, the trouble with being a congressman congressman is you have to vote for bills, and every bill has some line in it that can be taken out of context. So you always have a terrible record, and they could do this with anybody. They're doing it with Mike Pence, and what it really shows is that the mainstream media are not journalists, because political activists would use that line. Journalists would not.
It is a huge problem. Did you happen to see, by the way, the Korean dance team or something like this? That the
I only watched the gymnastics, but I'm sorry. I did see the Korean dance team. They tweeted out. New York Times tweeted this. All of the mainstream media. These like little catchy phrases about how amazing it was. How look at this, but. What it really brought back to me was a memory of the death of Kim Jong-il. Did you know, if people weren't ecstatic enough or excited enough, they'd be thrown in the gulag or they'd be killed.
Do you know that in 2006, 21 members of a North Korean cheering squad that had traveled to South Korea for an international athletic event, they came back and started talking about what they had seen in South Korea, so they sent them to prison. I mean, so you can bet that dance team was working really hard to get it right.
You saw, when Kim Jong-il died, that you saw people were sobbing so much. And this is what we saw on camera, and I thought, if that camera were on me in North Korea, I'd be doing the best performance of my life. Tears would be coming out of everywhere.
So you're going to talk about this more in your show, right?
I'm going to talk about a different take on this, because it seems we've just said that these journalists are not journalists; they're political activists. Yep. What I want to talk about is the moment that the MSM began to hate the USA. This was not always the case. There was a time in this country where the mainstream media did not always try to subvert their own country, especially on foreign affairs. And we're going to explain why that changed. Spoiler alert, it's Walter Cronkite. That's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Thanks a lot, Knowles. A really good report. I'm glad you had to watch it, not me.
That's sad for me.
You know why you may ask yourself why the left loves these regimes, these communist regimes that slaughter millions. Stalin killed tens of millions of his own, murdered tens of millions of his own people, and they're sitting there talking about his beautiful subway system. It's like, yes, and it's made with the bones of murdered Russia. What are they talking about? The reason is that if you do not trust the people and you think that you are so much smarter than the people, then ultimately you've got to start saying to yourself, hey, we've got to stop the people from doing what they do. What do the people do? Some people have prejudices. Some people have ideas that you don't like. Some people are not so nice. So you don't want to trust them. You want to tell them what to do, and it works great. It's always going to work great as long as you erase the people who get in your way. Everything works fine as long as you erase the people, but they just kind of forget about that. And they want to sit, the left wants to sit in the stands like the Olympic judges and tell us how good our ideas are, how good our products are, which materials we can use, which things we can say, how we should build our buildings, all this stuff. And it's no wonder they hate Donald Trump, because he keeps tearing apart the methods and systems by which they do that. All right, we got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. You can continue to listen on YouTube or come over to thedailywire.com and listen to the rest of the show. But if you want to watch the whole show on thedailywire.com, you got to subscribe. Look, open your wallet. A lousy $10 a month. And for a lousy $100 a month, you can subscribe for the year. You know what else you can do if you subscribe? You can be in the conversation. I almost forgot to mention that Michael Knowles is going to be on the Valentine's Day conversation. Some of us call it the Ash Wednesday conversation. How come he's doing it on Wednesday? Oh, because he's traveling on Tuesday. Usually it's on Tuesday. This time it's Wednesday, February 14th. It's 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. The conversation will stream live on the Daily Wire Facebook page and the Daily Wire YouTube channel, and will be free for everyone to watch, but only subscribers get to ask the questions. Now, I don't know if Knowles is going to be wearing pants. I know in his ad for this, he wasn't wearing pants, and there's still like little scratches and sparks on my eyes from where I watched that video. But to ask questions as a subscriber, like why aren't you wearing pants, log into our website, dailywire.com, and you can watch the live stream and head over to the conversation page. And after that, you can just start typing into the Daily Wire chat box if you're a subscriber, and Knowles will answer all live questions as they come in for an entire hour. Once again, you got to subscribe to get your questions answered by the sad and dateless Michael Knowles on Valentine's Day with a little dash of X's on it. There'll be a little cross on his forehead from the ashes. It's going to be pitiful, and you don't want to miss it. It's Wednesday, February 14th at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Come on over and join the conversation. All right, we got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube.